Welcome to this free immigration help channel. Today is September 8th, 2023, and today we're going to talk about the I-9 employment eligibility verification form that actually, believe it or not, everybody needs to fill out whenever it comes to the employment in the United States. And whenever I say everybody, it's both parties, it's the employee and the employer. Actually, this form has been updated quite recently. If we take a look at the edition date, you will see that the new one just came out in August 1st, 2023. So it's perfect timing to to make a video explaining on what it is, what this form is, and how to fill it out. Before I continue, I'm going to mention, as I mentioned in every video, I am not an immigration attorney. This is not a legal advice. All the information provided in the videos in general on this channel are directly from official government sources. Like in this case, as you can see, this is official government website for US Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS.gov, and you can find this form I-9 in all forms right here from the forms top navigation menu. So this is what the page for the form looks like. I will put that link in the description below. On this page you can find everything. You can find the form itself, you can find the instructions, and all the additional information that you need. If some of it is not covered in this video, make sure to check it out and do your own research. So what is I-9? Basically, it is what it is: employment eligibility verification. And this form is not filed anywhere. It is retained between the employee and the employer. Employer has to hold on to this I-9 for a certain period of time, and I will let you know the details of for how long. And actually, there is some re-verification if the employment goes on, just to make sure that the employee is still eligible to work. And that's really what the form is all about. It's about eligibility of the employment. If there is any kind of official audit from the government, it can be Department of Justice, it can be Department of Labor, it can be Department of Homeland Security for that matter. And if they do come to your company, you're the employer, and they do, some kind of checkup, and you have, people who are, either foreigners, immigrants, non-immigrants working for you, I-9 will show them that, hey, I followed the procedure, I collected the necessary documents that showed me that this person is authorized to work in the United States of America, and it will actually show which documents you will be providing. So let's go straight into the form I-9. I'm going to show you how to fill it out, and I'm going to open it in new tab. Here it is. Again, I'll put the link in the description below. The instructions I will put in the description below as well. I would highly recommend, just like with any form that you're working with, just go through the instructions. It is 8 pages. It's quite a little bit of a read. If you don't want to read the whole thing, honestly, you don't have to, because the form is pretty self-explanatory. But if you do have a question somewhere along the way, first of all, you can ask it on this channel in the comments below. You can definitely do that. I do Q&A. I try to do it every day, to do the Q&A videos where I answer people's comments. But you can look at the instructions, and I am 99% certain that you will find your answer in there. So let's get into the form I-9. Like I said, this is the brand new updated version of the form, and they in fact do state it's very important to use the updated information. That's why I always recommend taking information from the official sources, because as you can see, after October 31st, 2023, the previous version of the form is no longer will be valid. So keep in mind that you are using the most recent edition, which is 8/1/2023 as of right now, September 8th. Okay, so the very first section, let's get into filling out the form, is for the employee to fill out. So basically what it looks like, you will tell your new employee or prospective employee to print out this form, or maybe you will print it out for them and give it to them, and they will fill out just the section 1 right here, employee information and attestation. Very straightforward. You got your last name, John Doe, oops, it's different alphabet. There you go. Doe, John, middle name. You know, if there is middle name, you put a middle initial. If there isn't, then just leave it blank. On this form, it's fine to leave blank fields because you're not filing this form. It's really for you to retain this form. So you don't have to put like not applicable or anything like this. Other last names, if any, if there were any changes. Address, makes sense. Apartment number, if any. City or town, state, zip code, date of birth, US Social Security number. Obviously, they should have that because, you know, they are getting employed. Employee's email address, employee's telephone number, and then we are getting into the attestation of the employee, which says, I am aware that federal law provides for imprisonment or fines for false statements or the use of false documents in connection with the completion of this form. I attest under penalty of perjury that this information, including my selection of the box attesting to my citizenship or immigration status, is true and correct. And then there is a selection of a few boxes. Number one is a citizen of the United States. And yes, even if you are hiring a United States citizen, which clearly is obviously, you know, have the legal right to work in the United States of America, you still have to fill out the Form I-9, and that's one of the things that I see a lot of employers, they kind of because normally you don't deal with really anything that has to do with, you know, immigration, and I-9 is part of the whole, you know, Department of Homeland Security, USCIS. You really don't think about, well, you know, I need to fill out this form for the new employee that I'm hiring. But yes, you do, even for a U.S. citizen. Non-citizen national of the United States, all right? A lawful permanent resident. And number 4 is a non-citizen. And of course, if there is, you know, a non-citizen, that would be some kind of status, maybe immigrant status, maybe non-immigrant status. Regardless, you will put it in here. You will select whichever. And that's for the employee, all right? And then you would, you know, as an employee, again, you would be entering your USCIS alien registration number if you have it. If you have any kind of immigration case going in process, you will have a USCIS alien registration number, a number, which you would enter right here. Or your Form I-94 admission number, which is your basically entry, the duration of stay that you have received when you entered the United States of America, or foreign passport number and country of issuance. So as you can see, it's or. Now, if you have all three, you can put all three, but it's really or. So whichever one, you can enter one. You don't have to enter all three. Then there is a signature of the employee, and then today's date, the date when the signature was placed. Now, moving further to the section 2. Now this is up to you, to the employer, to do the review and verification of the documents that were presented by the employee in order to establish their eligibility to work in the United States of America, that they're authorized to work in the United States of America. Now, you're probably wondering, well, where can I get the list? What are the documents? As you can see, there are 2 columns. List A is basically A-class documents, right, where you're just providing one document. You're providing the information, the document title, issuing authority, document number, and the expiration date. That's it. And then there's another column for List B and List C. So those have to come in pairs. If you are presenting the List B, you have to combine it with the List C document. And if you scroll down just a tiny little bit on the page 2, you will find the lists of acceptable documents. And this is already organized in a very convenient manner, so you can really understand what's going on. So List A, obviously the documents that establish both identity and employment authorization, Class A documents basically. Number 1, U.S. passport or U.S. passport card. Number 2, permanent resident card or green card. Number 3, foreign passport that contains a temporary I-551 stamp. If you're not familiar with I-551 stamp, basically it's a temporary permanent residence card. And I know it sounds kind of, you know, temporary permanent makes no sense. But basically it is an immigrant visa that an immigrant receives at the U.S. Embassy or here in the United States if they're going through the field office. And it's temporary, but they are already a permanent resident. They are just waiting to receive a physical permanent residence card. So once the prospective immigrant enters the United States with a form I-551 stamp in their passport, which looks just like a regular visa. It is a visa. It is an immigrant visa. It converts automatically to a temporary permanent residence card. So again, if this is presented, the foreign passport with the I-551, that is good enough because it established both the identity and the eligibility to work in the United States. Also, of course, employment authorization document itself. Some of the immigrants, depending on how their immigration path, they might have the I-551 right away. If, for example, if they came to the United States through family reunification, or if they're doing something like asylum or refugee, then they will have employment authorization document. So anyway, any of these documents, they do work as a List A document. There's also for an individual temporarily authorized to work for a specific employer, there's foreign passport, Form I-994, passport from the federal states of Micronesia. So this gets very, very specific if this is one of those situations. Now we got List B and List C, and here it's not or, this is or between List A and List BC. So BC, they go together. You have to provide both. And basically you can combine one of these with one of these. The reason why you have to combine both is because you are establishing separately an identity, and separately you're establishing eligibility to work in the United States of America. And to give you an example, driver's license, for example. Driver's license, it establishes the identity of the person, but even the person that cannot legally work in the United States of America can have a driver's license, all right? That's why if you are, doing that verification process using the driver's license, you would have to provide something from List C, documents that establish employment authorization, like Social Security, for example, account number. You can't have the Social Security account number, without, well, you can, but if you're not eligible to work in the United States, it will say that it's not valid for employment right there on the card. Keep that in mind. So it will be crystal clear. Then there's certification of report of birth issued by the Department of State, original or certified copy of birth certificate issued by state, Native American tribal document, U.S. citizen ID card, identification card for use of resident citizen in the United States, employment authorization document issued by the Department of Homeland Security. So again, you can go through these lists of documents. If you have any questions, it is pretty self-explanatory, but if it's still not clear, just ask them in the comments below and I will be happy to address them. And that's really it for the most part. There's also the receipts that you can accept. Some of the receipts, like for example, receipt for replacement of a lost, stolen, or damaged List B document. Receipt for a replacement of a lost, stolen, or damaged List A document. And stuff like this happens a lot of times, especially with immigrants, because not even lost or stolen, but more so that you apply for employment authorization, or maybe you had an employment authorization and now you're applying for the renewal of the employment authorization. Meanwhile, the old one expired. So you're showing that you applied for the renewal. This receipt, this is also sufficient and acceptable to complete that verification process, again, by you, the employer. So moving further, the supplement A is the preparer or the translator certification. If somebody helped you prepare this form, if somebody helped you translate this form, that's what they will fill out, the third party. Again, if this was, if this was some kind of just, regular help, you ask somebody, hey, what does this word mean? And they translated it. That's not the translation services. Here it's specifically for someone who provides third-party services, translation or preparation. That's what they will fill out. So most likely you're not gonna need that. Then there is a re-verification and rehire in case if you do need to do the re-verification. It is now actually a supplement B. Before, on the old form, it used to be in section 3. Now it's no longer section 3 because honestly, not a lot of people probably gonna be using this. But if you do, it's in the supplement B. But that's really it. That is it. So basically, you are just looking at one page. As you can see, it is pretty straightforward. It's your employee, and then you are an employer filling out this right here, basically just doing the verification, just looking at the documents that were presented to you by the employee, and that's really it. And then what you do with that form, absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. If we click on where to file, it says do not file Form I-9. Do not file it to nobody. Don't file it to the USCIS. Don't file it to ICE. Don't file it to nobody. What you have to do is employers must have a completed Form I-9 on file for each person on their payroll who is required to complete the form, which is everyone. Retain and store Form I-9 for 3 years after the date of hire or for 1 year after employment is terminated, whichever is later, and make their forms available for inspection if requested by authorized U.S. government officials from the Department of Homeland Security, Department of Labor, or Department of Justice. And I gotta say, this form is good for both employee and the employer because it does prevent, employee, and it does prevent the employer from accidentally hiring someone who is not authorized to work in the United States. And a lot of times, when you're an immigrant, it's not out of the bad intent. You come to the country and you think, well, I can just work, and then you go, and then the employer does not complete their verification and hires and starts paying. It's hard to do without the Social Security, but a lot of times, the visas, you can come on a certain visa and have a Social Security for a certain duration of time. And then you retain that Social Security number, even though you're not authorized to work past the job offer, past that employment period that you had when you were authorized to work, if that makes sense. But what I'm trying to say is that sometimes there are situations where at first glance it seems like, well, the person is eligible to work in the United States. The person themselves think that they are eligible to work in the United States because they have, let's say, Social Security, and then they come, and then the employment starts, and then a year down the road, the employer realizes that, they actually were not eligible to work in the United States of America all this time, and now it's a not very good, complicated situation. So Form I-9, it actually prevents this from happening, and it really does help both parties. So hopefully this video was helpful to you. Let me know, like I said, if you have any questions, just post them in the comments below, and I will try to get them and address them in one of the Q&A videos. Again, thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. God bless, and I will see you in the next video.